there is a Guinness World Record, officially certified, for the most weight ever gained for a film role. 70 pounds. The man who holds it tore the ligaments in his legs doing it. He spent 9 months getting his body back. And when the movie came out, critics said he gave the best performance in a Stanley Kubrick film. Roger Ebert wrote that the movie never fully recovered once he left the screen. His name is Vincent D'Onofrio, and Hollywood had almost no idea what to do with him after that. He is one of the most decorated character actors of the last 40 years. A man who has played Orson Welles, a space alien, a serial killer, and a corrupt New York City mayor. Yet leading man stardom never came. He spent a decade on one of the most demanding TV schedules in history, collapsed twice from exhaustion, lost his sister while filming, and still wasn't allowed to leave set for the funeral. He made choices that cost him financially, built a reputation that scarred some of his co-workers, and watched roles that could have changed his career go to other people. But here is the thing about Vincent D'Onofrio. Just when it looked like the industry had filed him away, he came back. And this time, the whole world finally paid attention. Vincent Philip D'Onofrio was born on June 30th, 1959, in Brooklyn, New York, into an Italian family with roots in Naples. His mother and father but met, while his father, Gene, was stationed in Hawaii with the Air Force. Gene D'Onofrio was trained as an interior decorator, but spent most of his spare time in amateur theater, and that world would quietly shape his youngest son from the start. When his parents divorced, the family moved. Hawaii, Colorado, Florida. Vincent has described himself as a shy kid who spent a lot of time in his room, inside his own head. In Hialeah, Florida, he discovered magic from Cuban entertainers who owned a local shop. He learned sleight of hand, how to hold a room's attention, how to make people look where you wanted them to look. That skill would never really leave him. He worked backstage in community theater during high school, building sets, running sound. After graduation, he drove across the country with a friend and ended up in Boulder, Colorado, working construction, paying rent, doing small community theater productions on nights and weekends. Then he made the move that defined everything. New York, method acting, the American Stanislavski Theater and the Actors Studio. Broadway debut in 1984 in open admissions. Nobody was watching yet. But that was about to change, because a British director in England was looking for a very specific kind of body. Stanley Kubrick was casting Full Metal Jacket, his brutal Vietnam War film, and he had a problem. The character of Private Leonard Lawrence, later nicknamed Gomer Pyle by his drill sergeant, was written as a skinny, ignorant redneck. Kubrick looked at the script and decided the character would have far more impact if he were big, physically overwhelming. He told D'Onofrio, then 26 years old and barely known, "I want you to be big." Lon Chaney, big. D'Onofrio gained 70 pounds. He brought his weight to 280 pounds. During filming of an obstacle course scene, he tore the ligaments in both legs and kept working. The transformation wasn't just physical, it was total. He became Pyle, a man buckling under the weight of humiliation, slowly going somewhere no one could follow him. R. Lee Ermey, who played the terrifying gunnery Sergeant Hartman and became one of the most iconic drill instructors in cinema history, later said D'Onofrio gave the best performance in the entire film. Roger Ebert wrote that the film never fully recovers after D'Onofrio leaves the screen. Richard Corliss at Time said both he and Ermey deserved Oscar nominations. Critics were unanimous. This young, unknown actor had just done something extraordinary. And then it took 9 months to lose the weight. His knees were damaged. His body had paid a real price. When the film came out, Hollywood said, "Great performance," and gave him a small role in Adventures in Babysitting and a supporting part in Mystic Pizza. That was the reward. And what came next would quietly define the next 2 decades of his career. Throughout the 1990s, Vincent D'Onofrio built one of the most respected and quietly frustrating filmographies in Hollywood. He played a witness to JFK's assassination in Oliver Stone's JFK. He appeared in Robert Altman's The Player. He played Orson Welles in Tim Burton's Ed Wood, a performance that led to one of the more quietly humiliating moments of his career. Burton decided his voice wasn't right for Welles and had it secretly dubbed by a voice artist. D'Onofrio found out. He was, by his own accounts, not pleased. Years later, he would write and direct his own short film, 5 Minutes, Mr. Welles, specifically as a correction. A private reckoning with a performance that had been taken away from him. He played Edgar the Bug in Men in Black, a farmer possessed by a giant alien cockroach, one of the most physically committed and genuinely strange villain performances in any big-budget film of the decade. Then The Cell in 2000, where he played a serial killer lost in his own terrifying subconscious. An Emmy nomination for a single guest appearance on Homicide: Life on the Street. Best Actor at the Seattle International Film Festival for the whole wide world. By any measure, a remarkable run. And yet, he was not a star. He was a character actor, the kind of actor other actors admired, the kind critics praised, the kind that rarely gets first billing. He later put it plainly himself. I took a route of acting rather than star-making, so it cost me a lot financially. At some point during this period, he was also offered a role in The Sopranos, the show that handed household name status to almost every actor who touched it. He turned it down. Whatever the reason, it was a door that never opened again. But if the 1990s were a slow burn, the 2000s were something much darker. In 2001, D'Onofrio took the lead in Law & Order: Criminal Intent as Detective Robert Gorin, a Sherlock Holmes-style psychological investigator who drew suspects into confessing through sheer force of intuition. He was extraordinary in the role, and it almost destroyed him. The show filmed 23 episodes a season. D'Onofrio was in nearly every scene. He was working 18-hour days, and because his background was in film, he had never thought to get a scene cap written into his contract, something that would have limited how much they could extract from him. So, they extracted everything. On November 10th, 2004, he collapsed on set while rehearsing a physically demanding scene involving climbing. A few days later, he collapsed again at home. He was hospitalized. Diagnosis: exhaustion. But the full picture was worse than that. During this same period, he lost his stepfather. Then his sister died of a brain aneurysm. She was reading a letter to her already dead stepfather when it happened. D'Onofrio needed time to attend the services. The show refused. Dick Wolf's production would not give him the days. The grief, the exhaustion, the rage, it spilled out. D'Onofrio has spoken about this period with unusual honesty. He said he pushed it so far on that set that some co-workers were, in his words, scarred for life. He described the way they still reacted to him years later as involuntary, like a seizure. Dick Wolf, for his part, reportedly explored replacing D'Onofrio entirely after the collapse. The show eventually brought in Chris Noth to share the workload. D'Onofrio stayed. He finished his run in 2011. But the toll was visible. He had spent a decade being the best thing on television and had almost nothing left to show for it. The question now was whether Hollywood would give him another shot. For a few years, it looked like the answer was no. The years between Criminal Intent and his next major moment are instructive. A run of films that mostly landed quietly. Escape Plan in 2013, alongside Stallone and Schwarzenegger, where he played a side villain. The Judge in 2014, with Robert Downey Jr. and Robert Duvall. Jurassic World in 2015, where he played a mercenary who gets eaten by a dinosaur. None of it was bad work. D'Onofrio brought real weight to every part. But none of it was the kind of role that recalibrates a career. He was 56 years old. He had broken his body for Kubrick, broken down on set for Dick Wolf, and spent 30 years being the most interesting person in the room without anyone building a room around him. And then, quietly, Marvel did something almost no studio had done before. They went looking for the villain first. In 2015, Netflix launched Daredevil, a ground-level Marvel crime series set in Hell's Kitchen They needed a Kingpin. Wilson Fisk, a man of terrifying physical presence, operatic emotion, and genuine intelligence. A villain who believed with total conviction that everything he was doing was right. The character was originally a Spider-Man antagonist in the comics, before writer Frank Miller reinvented him as Daredevil's primary nemesis in the 1980s. D'Onofrio gained another 40 pounds for the role. He built something that critics and audiences almost universally described as one of the greatest villain performances in superhero television history. Then, Netflix canceled the show in 2018. For 3 years, the character was in legal limbo, technically as part of the Marvel universe, but untouchable. Fans campaigned, nothing happened. It looked like it was over. It wasn't over. When Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige decided to revive Daredevil, he made one condition non-negotiable. Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio had to come back. Feige reportedly described them as inextricably linked to their characters, in the same way Robert Downey Jr. was inseparable from Tony Stark. That is not a small comparison. Hawkeye in 2021, Echo in 2024, then Daredevil, born again in March 2025. The biggest Disney Plus debut of the year, 7.5 million views in its first 5 days, 87% on Rotten Tomatoes. Critics singled out D'Onofrio as the show's beating heart. By season 2, he and Cox were credited as executive producers, not just acting in the story, but shaping it. He is now 66 years old. He has outlasted the system that never quite knew what to do with him. He chose art over star-making, his words, and paid for it. He collapsed. He lost people he loved while a studio watched the clock. He was written off more than once, and he is currently one of the most talked-about actors in prestige television, with a 3rd season already locked in for 2027. Vincent D'Onofrio once said he picks roles based on one rule: choose the things that scare you most. For 40 years, Hollywood never scared him. It just never quite deserved him either.